I'm Thomas, your host, and this is the Paranormal Portal. How you guys doing tonight? Happy Friday. Hope you guys have had a great week. I had a pretty good week. It's been extraordinarily busy. I'm doing a lot of things, developing the show, and working on some items and ideas and trying to develop this and make it a bigger and better thing than it was. So I appreciate it. And thank you guys for being here. And it is Friday. I am talking to you live. Thank you, Lucky. I'm talking to you live tonight. This is April 7th. Welcome to April 7th, everybody. We are in the month of April. Time is moving forward. And I'm glad you guys like that. And the reason that I started the show with the song Voices by Alice in Chains was because I've been working on my studio setup here, and thanks to Lucky and to Chris and everyone that was a part of it. I did a lot of testing this last week as well, and I wanted to play some sound bites and stuff that I've found and I thought were pretty compelling. And so tonight's theme is about ghosts again, and it's one of my favorite topics, that and Bigfoot, and because I've had so many experiences with the ghosts, not so much Bigfoot, but I just love the idea of big hairy cryptid run around that nobody's found yet. So what can you say? I'm a romantic. So the Voices song is because I wanted to play some EVPs that I found and in opening this, I don't know if any of you know, I'm sure many of you know, but EVP stands for electronic voice phenomenon. It's ghosts investigators, researchers, paranormal researchers use microcassette recorders or other recorders. Even your cell phone can be used to capture EVPs. And essentially the idea is that spirits can talk and they can be recorded on the magnetic media or on the microphone, which uses a magnet, even though it's out of our hearing range. A lot of times on playback, in specific locations, they will get things that they did not hear with their ears. And so that's called an electronic voice phenomena, or EVP. And you see it all the time on the ghost hunting shows, and it's a technique that's been used for ages and ages, ever since there's been cassette recorders, I think, and even reel-to-reel back in the way back days. But it's been around a long time, and there's a lot of amazing EVPs out there. And again, unless you're there doing it in person, it's hard to be sure that everything is legitimate because you can't test it. You can't test their setup. You can't test their equipment. You can't test anything. And so it's a leap of faith. But so is everything else on the internet. And sometimes you just gotta, try to do a little bit of discernment on your own and figure out what is real, or at least real to you. And the ones that I found tonight, I think, are pretty legitimate, and I wanted to play them for you. And I suppose I should do some kind of intros to the show. This is the Paranormal Portal. It's our show for all things paranormal. Thank you for joining us. We are on Facebook. Please follow us, facebook.com, Paranormal Portal Radio. We are on Twitter, and that is at Paranormal Portal, PORTL. If you would like to be a part of the show, please feel free to call in. I always have the call boards open, and the call-in line at TFR has changed in the last couple of weeks. So it is now 213-233-3998. That's 213-233-3998. But wait, there's more. If you'd like to be a part of the show but don't want to call in, please feel free to email me at paranormalportal4u, number 4 letter u, at gmail.com. I'll be happy to relay your story and protect your identity if that's what you wish as well. That's kind of I'm developing a radio voice. What do you guys think? I don't know. I'm really punchy today. It's Friday. How can you not be punchy on a Friday? It's like the end of a long week, and I'm embracing it. So thanks for being here and embracing it with me. This is me giving you all a big hug. So I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you're burning the night away. And if you're joining us from iHeartRadio, thanks, guys, for listening in. We just love being a part of your network as well, and we're happy to be here. And thanks for helping us become what we are and what we will be forever and ever. Amen. So anyway, welcome to the show, and I'll get back to these paranormal EVPs. and I think they're really cool. And now, one of them that I'm going to play for you, and I got to figure out which one it is here because I got 3 of them pulled up, and one of them is a scream. Okay, this is the scream, and now I do want to warn you, it's really loud, and I don't have the volume cranked on the sound. Oh, I'm still playing music. Sorry, I should probably kill that, huh? Sorry about that. I should put on spooky music. Let me put on spooky songs. All right. No, I can't do that, can I? Because I got to adjust the volume for the EVP. See, this is new to me. Everybody, you're part of this beta test of mine. This is live. This is real. This is live radio. This is not scripted, ladies and gentlemen. You cannot make this stuff up. So anyway, the first one that I'm going to play for you is a scream that was recorded. Sure, I couldn't research it that in depth, but I want to play it for you. And I do warn you, the scream is incredibly loud. And the backstory on this is that people were there in the house. They did not hear this with their own ears. They were all sleeping on the floor, but they left recorders out. And this is what they found when they woke up. And even the fact that it overloaded the mic with the power of this scream, to me, is really amazing, because that becomes a physical phenomenon, but it still must be out of the range of hearing or something. I don't know how that works, but ladies and gentlemen, here it is. And this clicking noise is apparently part of the phenomenon as well. So everything you're hearing was these spirits, or this spirit. Is that not creepy? It's so loud. It's so loud and so intense. And apparently, like I said, nobody in the house heard that as it happened, but that is what happened, according to the researchers anyway. Now, this one, I got to warn you, this one is really hard for me to listen to as well. And something about it just freaks me out. I don't know what it is. It's this most inhuman sounding, pained, anguished, angry scream that I've ever heard in my life. Now, the setup for this was that these people that lived in this house were experiencing weird noises in the nights, and they were losing sleep. They were having all kinds of issues with this loud noises coming out of their basement. So this paranormal crew went in, and over a period of 3 nights left recorders downstairs. And on the first 2 nights, they got absolutely nothing. And then they had 2 recorders running in the basement. And one of the recorders, and the 2 recorders were right next to each other, only one of the recorders picked this up. And I've got to warn you, again, this is this is creepy. I don't even like listening to it myself. It's just something about it. It's just so unnatural. I don't know how else to explain it. But anyway, if you got kids, you might have plugged your ears just because you don't want them to have nightmares. But this is a family show, so it's nothing bad, nothing horrible language or anything. But I just want you to hear this scream. And here we go. Is that not just the worst thing you've ever heard? Oh, man. I don't know what it is about that one, but that just totally sends shivers down my spine. It just, if I heard that in my house, and I don't get scared by this kind of stuff, I really don't. But if I heard something like that, I think that I'd be going the other direction. I would not be going to that. And for the record, that was recorded at 3:12 a.m. And allegedly, that is the sweet spot. That's the ghosting, the witching hour, as it's referred to. And many people have different interpretations of what the witching hour is. But in the paranormal community, the witching hour is 3 to 4 a.m. because that's when they see normally a pretty huge spike in activity. Yeah, that is strange. It was only captured on one recorder. You're right, Stace. That is true. Is it okay if I call you Stace? Sorry. Stacy. Let me finish my words, my letters, all the vowels. Okay, so the next one now is taken from the old TV show Ghost Hunters. And the reason I think this one is interesting, and again, the researchers on Ghost Hunters, and that's Jane, Grant, and their crew. And this is an older episode, but the cool part of it is is they were in this old hotel, and essentially the backstory is the hotel was built around the turn of the century, 1900s, and the architect and the builder would off, or the architect and his wife rather, would go and spend time there. They really enjoyed visiting the hotel, and she apparently ended up passing away, but they believe her spirit is still staying there. And so ghost hunters would call in to investigate this. And now the interesting part is that they didn't hear her speaking, but you can clearly hear her dialogue going along with them as they're asking questions on the tape or on the recording. And it seems very clear that she doesn't see them. She doesn't see them, but she can interact with them because she's hearing their voices. And so I'm going to play it for you, and I'll try to keep an eye on the dialogue in case it's hard to hear. And again, this is the beta test of me playing clips on the show, so you guys will have to let me know if you're hearing it well or not.
Princess, are you in here? Princess, can you at least let us know you're in here? Wow. Maybe say something, move something.
This is... In the beginning, you could hear what sounds like, hello, is there somebody there?
Princess, are you in here?
I could hear that crystal clear. At one point, Jay says, Princess, are you in the room? And it sounds like she says, of course I'm in the room. Where are you?
Princess, can you at least let us know you're in here? Maybe say something. Maybe say.
And so that was what I thought was a very interesting take. That this entity or this departed person is still present, can hear people around, but cannot see them. And so are people that pass on, are they in a dimensional shift, or is she just in a state of confusion and not really sure what happened? Did she realize that she passed? I don't know. And those are the questions that you know, when they said, are you here? She said, of course I'm here. Who is this? You know, that's such an intelligent response, and that's clearly a class A, you know. It could be, George says, no eyes, and maybe they really are perhaps blinded. I don't know. But it seems to me that in most cases, spirits interact with their environment. But the question is what environment are they seeing? Are they seeing the environment that we see? Or are they seeing a representation of it that coincides with their lifetime? I don't know. Yeah, Lewis says perhaps they are in a different dimension. And for those of you listening, if you'd like to be a part of the show as well, and you'll hear me respond quite often to the chat room, go to truthfrequencyradio.com/chat and come into the chat room. And it's always some great conversation going on there. Wonderful people. So I neglected to mention that earlier. My apologies. Yeah, that's true. They say time, space, sound tear. Yeah, it could be. And that's the curiosity of it. Now, some spirits appear to see and act aggressively towards people, or even act caringly or lovingly towards people, and other ones seem to be in this state of confusion or flux, like they don't know what's going on. And I think those EVPs definitely demonstrate that. And I wanted to share those with you. So if you want to give me some feedback on playing clips like that, please email me at paranormalportal4u@gmail.com. I'd appreciate it. I'm just trying to fine tune the show and expand it and make it better and better. And those of you in the chat room, if you can let me know, did you hear everything okay? And I'd appreciate it. Naysay says, stop talking about us, Brent. Mind your own busy BUX. It's a free show. You get what you pay for, Naysay. So anyway, but those were some cool EVPs that I wanted to share with you, and just to see what you guys think of all of that. And of course, I'm clearly a big fan of it. So what do? Cue spooky music, because I'm going to start reading ghost stories. Not too loud. I don't know. I think I'll turn it down just a hair. It's supposed to be mood music. So anyway, tonight we're definitely doing, clearly we're doing a show on ghosts. And I'm also excited about this because when we do shows on Bigfoots and other cryptids, I'm going to play for you some of the famous howls and things that are noted in the Bigfoot world. The Sierra sounds, the samurai chatter. There's so many sound samples that have been recorded of people believing they're experiencing, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, whatever. And so I'm excited to play all those things for you guys. That's what's exciting about it. New and interesting stuff, ladies and gentlemen. All right here on the Paranormal Portal. So anyway, we're going to get into some ghost stories. And the first series of stories come from a website called theoccultmuseum.com. This is 13 true ghost stories you shouldn't read alone. And I just want you to know. I just want you to know that you're not alone. I'm here with you. All right, thank you, Lucky. Appreciate it. I am turned it down. How's that sound? Lucky's like my producer. She's so awesome. She's in the background going, hey, this, do this. That's why I love you, Lucky. Okay, so 13 ghost stories you shouldn't read alone. Don't worry, I'm here with you. So the first one is called Cabin in the Woods. First time I moved away from home, I lived in an old cabin-like house. I should say, I have to be careful because I've done so many of these ghost shows and pulled up ghost stories from all over the internet, and I haven't done a real good job of cataloging which pages you can or can't. Oh, I know you can hear me. I'm counting on it. Thank you. Sorry. I haven't done a real good job cataloging which pages I've read, so I really apologize if I'm repeating stories from time to time. I have the attention span of a mosquito sometimes. That's all I'm going to say. So anyway, this one's called The Cabin in the Woods. First time I moved away from home, I lived in an old cabin-like house that I rented really cheap. I never had a good night's sleep in there. I always tossed and turned and woke up several times during the night. But it wasn't until after a few weeks that things started to get weird. In the beginning, it was just small things I didn't really think too much about, like keys missing and cups and plates not being where I thought I had left them earlier. Then I started waking up in the morning to find various drawers opened, and things laying around like someone had been in a hurry searching for something. I even came home to a wide open main door and decided to change the locks. But even then, when I was home with the door locked, I could walk past the hallway and just in the corner of my eye see the door slide open. At one time I was cat sitting one of my friend's cats, and I would just sit for hours. And it would just sit for hours in the middle of the room and toss its tail from side to side, watching as if it was following something around the room with its eyes. Creeping me out like crazy. If you can only imagine what it felt like to see a cat slowly following something that floats randomly around the room and finally stop right beside you. After a while, I just could not bear to live there anymore and finally moved out. Yeah, that could be a disclaimer on the rent. could be a waiver on a lease. I'm sorry, I can't live here. Cats keep watching ghosts float through the room. This one's called The Disconnected Number. I thought this one was kind of creepy. A few years ago, my brother would get a call on his cell phone around 2 to 3 a.m. every night. He would answer it, and it was this hellish sounding noise, like static mixed with screams. He changed his cell number after a month of this, and it stopped. Then, after a week or so, it began again. The exact same noise, exact same time. Finally, one day, he decided to backdial the call. It was an old man that had no clue what he was talking about. Still, the calls persisted. If he didn't answer, it would call a few more times. No messages were left. He decided to say screw it, ended his contract with the phone company and switched to a new one, and then got another new number. You guessed it, the screaming static calls continued after a short delay. By this time, he was terrified every night, unsure why this was happening. He backed out of the number again and got a different person. Around this time, he lost his job and his phone. The calls stopped, of course. His phone was disconnected now. So one day, my mom asked me to listen to this weird message she got on our home phone. It was a static screaming. We showed my brother, and he was freaking out. He backed out of the number again, and it said the number was disconnected this time. Never heard from it again after that. That's plenty creepy. Next one is called The Handprint. This is really short, but it's really kind of creepy. Heard a tapping on my window at night. Next morning, there was a handprint on the outside of my window. I live on the 3rd floor of an apartment building. Yeah, that's all kinds of wrong. This one's called Don't Turn Away. I was a kid when this happened. My uncle and I were finishing up chopping and gathering firewood for my grandmother because it was getting dark. Driving back on a dirt road at about 30 miles per hour, give or take 5 miles per hour, I had this awful sense of being watched. Before I could turn to look out my window, passenger side, my uncle quickly shouted, "Don't." I completely froze. My heart felt like it was beating out of my chest, then completely stopped. When I heard a tap, tap, tap on my window, my uncle sped up and was loudly praying in my native language. I don't know what was going on and thought it was over till our truck suddenly dipped from the bed. My uncle then started saying, "Look at me, don't turn away," over and over. Then I heard it tap, tap on the window behind me. It was getting harder for me to breathe and I wanted to cry. A minute or two passed and the truck dipped again. My uncle looked around and sighed. It was quiet beside the truck and the road. He looked at me and said, "We will ask your father to do a prayer in the morning, so the evil will forget our faces." Equivalent. I remember curling up in the seat and just staring out the radio, watching the time. Listening to my uncle sing an old prayer till we got to my grandmother's house. I got nothing. How the hell's my voice? Hello, test, test, test. Testing, hello, hello. Hello? Testing, 1, 2. Can you guys hear me? Wow. I'm not hearing it. Wow. Okay, sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. I apparently have angered the spirits or something here. Not sure what happened. Wow. That was very strange. I got nothing in my ears. Okay. Welcome back to the show. Sorry about that. Okay. Thank you. Thank you all. Yeah, it was weird. All of a sudden, my voice was dead in my ears. I couldn't hear it through my earphones, and the mic was just not working, but I guess it was just me. This new setup and all. Oh, yeah. So apparently there was a lag spike as well, so maybe that did it, ladies and gentlemen. So we are back, and this is the Paranormal Portal, and I'm still Brent Thomas. Sounds like everything's a go. And we are going through stories of ghosts and hauntings and experience. And then if you get a chance and you missed it, please check out the first part of the show when we went through EVPs. They were really plenty spooky. I gotta play that one again. That just, oh my God, it creeps me out. But I'm gonna do it again because it's just so weird. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is again from a basement, and I don't know why I'm playing it for you again, other than it's just weird. So I'm playing it for you now. I'm gonna have to mute the music here. Hold on. I don't know what it is about it, but it just totally trips me out. Okay, so this is the weird, inhuman howl, scream, pain. I don't even know what the hell this is, but it just gives me chills. But it's almost addicting. I don't know. I keep wanting to listen to it. This is at 3:12 a.m. that just doesn't get much spookier than that. I don't care who you are. That would have me scraping my underwear. That is just wrong. Anyway, back to the show. So that was in the first part of the show. We were going through some EVPs and stuff, and I just wanted to share it with you again. So anyway, we're going through these stories, and we just got through the one of something was following this truck, and apparently it left them alone. It was an evil spirit of some kind, and I don't know. They don't really explain what it was, and apparently the uncle never explained. But in any case, they made it through. The next story is called Funny Papa. My grandfather died last year sometime when my son was maybe a year old. We had dinner with the whole family every Friday night, so my son had seen him several times. My grandfather was a very quiet, proud man. But when he thought he was alone or unseen, he would make silly faces at my son to get a laugh. A couple nights after his funeral, my son, who liked to crawl into bed with us in the middle of the night, just started laughing uncontrollably at like 2 a.m. So I get out of bed to see what's going on, and find my son sitting in the middle of the living room in the dark, laughing. I say, "Hey, buddy, what are you doing?" In toddler speak, he says, "Papa, funny." I got a little nervous for some reason and then went to pick him up and bring him to our room for the rest of the night. And as I'm hauling him away, he says, "Bye, Papa," and blows a kiss at absolutely nothing I can see. And again, children seem to be able to see these things so much clearer than we can as adults. And many ideas as to why that is. Is there more naturally occurring DMT in their brains than we have as adults? Is it psychological that we learn to tune things out as adults that children are wide open to? I don't know. But in any case, it's very, very profound and very powerful. And some people, like a friend of the show, Deb Varner, she managed to keep it through her whole life. And my hat's off to her. This one's called The Man in the Top Hat. When I was growing up, and this story repeats over and over, not this story specifically, but people observing and a being, usually it's a shadow being, wearing a top hat. And I haven't read this story yet, so I don't know what it's going to say, but that just is such a common tale in shadow people. The man in the top hat, and a lot of times with glowing red eyes. So when I was growing up, one of my best friends told me about a very creepy situation involving him, his younger brother, and a man in the window. When my friend and his little brother were younger, they shared a bedroom. They're some years apart, but his younger brother was born with a multitude of different health issues, including multiple sclerosis, and he's confined to a wheelchair and cannot care for himself. So to keep an eye on him overnight, when his parents couldn't, they share a bedroom. One night, my friend randomly woke up for no particular reason and happened to glance over at his younger brother, but noticed something very startling, a strange silhouette of a man wearing a top hat looking in through the window behind his younger brother's crib. The first thing my friend did was jump up and turn the light on, and then ran into his parents' room to tell them what he saw. When his parents came back into their room to investigate, his younger brother was having a seizure in his crib. A few of his family members say it was his younger brother's guardian angel standing at the window that night. My friend believes it was death. It's all still pretty unsettling to me. This one's called The Imaginary Friend. When I was younger, I had an imaginary friend who lived in this massive antique dresser. We'd chill out, and I vividly remember him telling me stories, although I have absolutely no recollection of what they actually were. I remember one day talking to my parents about it. Dad traveled quite a bit, so he wasn't up to date with what I was up to. And when I started telling him about my dresser buddy, he wanted to know his name. It was something innocent like Peter or Patrick, but I can still see him going white in the face. I drew Peter or Patrick out for him, and the very next day, him and my uncle took out the dresser and burned it. It wasn't until a few years later when I found out my dad's little brother, my uncle, also had the same friend with the same name who lived in the same antique dresser. After a few months of the typical imaginary friend crap, my uncle started having night terrors and couldn't sleep because of Peter/Patrick. It got so bad that they had to move him out of his room before he managed to get back to normal. The next one is called The Old Piano. When I was in 8th grade, I went on a school trip that was called the Louisiana Tour. It was mostly going around to significant sites in South Louisiana. One of the places we went to was Myrtle's Plantation, which was considered to be one of the most haunted places in the country, which is considered. There are all kinds of stories about the place, but at one point, we were standing in a room as a part of a larger group, and the tour guide was talking about something. I don't remember what. As I'm standing there, I start to hear what sounds like someone hitting a piano key. After I heard it a couple of times, I started to look around for a source of the noise. I didn't see a piano, but I kept hearing it. So I asked my friends who were standing near me if they heard it. They said no. When I heard it again, I said, there it is again, and that they must have heard it, but they thought I was crazy. So I went back to looking around the room. Everyone's eyes were on the tour guide except for one woman. She caught my eye and pointed at me, and then at her ear with a questioning look. I realized she was asking if I heard it too, and I nodded. At this point, the tour guide starts telling a story about a soldier who had died there, and that he played the piano, and multiple guests had reported hearing him playing in the night. I honestly didn't know what to think. I guess I still don't. I talked to the woman as we were all leaving the room, and she heard the exact same thing as me, but her husband and son had not heard it. The next story is called The Light. My wife's mother passed away in 2003 from cancer. After the funeral, family and friends gathered at her house for a final celebration of her life. The gathering went late into the evening. My son, 3 years old at the time, needed to go to bed at that point. I walked with him up the stairs to where he would sleep. The room that my mother-in-law passed away in was upstairs, and straight down the hallway as we reached the top of the landing. My son and I walked upstairs together, with me holding his hand. As we nearly reached the top of the stairs, my son stopped and wouldn't move. At the point which he could just see down the hallway, he was staring straight down the hall. I looked at him, then down the hall to an open doorway to a completely dark bedroom. He just stared and would not move any further. I asked him, "Buddy, are you okay?" His response was, "Daddy, the light. The light scares me." I looked again down the hallway where he was staring into darkness. "Buddy, you see a light?" "Yes, Daddy, it scares me." I promptly picked him up and went back downstairs. To this day, the hairs still stand up on the back of my neck to think of it. This one is called You Don't Know How Lucky You Are. Spring break of 2010. My buddies and I decided to camp out on an island at a local lake. One night as we were cooking food and drinking beer, a canoe floats by with one guy in it. He asks how we're doing, and we invite him to our island for grilled meat and beers. Being in South Arkansas, we naturally assume that everyone is friendly and wants to hang out. His name was Kurt, and he was super friendly, but really seemed to be sad. We asked him what he was up to, and he replied, "Oh, nothing really, it's just that my friends are probably worried about me." He looked at me and winked. "They'll find out soon enough." That still haunts me to this day. Everyone liked Kurt, and noticing that it was getting dark and he had been drinking, we offered to let him stay with us that night. He declined, saying that he had to get back to where he was going, and he seemed very adamant about it. I asked where he was headed, thinking maybe we could get him a ride on our jet ski or something. Kurt ignored the question and said, "You boys don't know how lucky you are." He hopped in his canoe and left. We didn't think much about it. The next morning we woke up early to do some fishing. As we're fishing, a police boat pulls up. The officer asks if we're part of the search party that found the body. We obviously have no clue what he was talking about, so he tells us the story of a young man in a canoe that disappeared last week. Apparently, divers found his body at the bottom of the lake 2 days before. The young man's name was Kurt Clark. This was so freaky for us that we all packed up and left camp that day. I don't know. Kurt seemed like a nice guy. This one's called The Final Goodbye. My mom had 3 kids. There's me, the youngest, and my older brother. But before either of us was born, there was Jonathan. He was a sweet little blonde boy, big blue eyes, known for accidentally repeating Dad's swears in church. Wholesome kid, great in school, active outside. When he was almost 6, he was riding his bike and fell and hit his head on a rock. He got up and said he felt fine. My mom found him the next morning in his bed, and she tried to wake him to get him up for kindergarten. One pupil dilated and the other did not. She got him airlifted to the nearest hospital. During this time, Jonathan's best friend, Nick, was sitting at the breakfast table eating cereal. Nick suddenly gets up from the table and goes to the door. When his mom asked him what's up, Nick says that Johnny was calling for him. You see, Nick and Johnny lived on separate blocks, but they weren't allowed to cross the street without a parent yet because they were still fairly young. But they lived close enough to call to one another to come out and talk at their respective street corners. So Nick goes out to the street corner while his mother receives a call from mine that Johnny was just declared dead in the hospital. Idle brain aneurysm that was triggered by the fall. Nick's mom can hardly handle this news and is now wondering where her son went. But Nick comes back a few minutes later and says that he heard Johnny calling to him, but he wasn't at the street corner when he looked. Then he sits down to continue eating his cereal. When his mom asked Nick what Johnny was saying, Nick said he had to come to say goodbye. The next one is called The Letter. It was in college while I was writing letters for my closest high school friends one night. Email and text weren't in back then. While writing a letter for one of those friends, I felt a creepy chill that brought shivers down my spine as if the wind blew, but it wasn't a windy nor rainy day back then. It was followed by the smell of a candle burning and some sort of floral perfume. The next day I found out that classmate in mind died the night before. I don't believe in ghosts, but many people say it was her, and she dropped by our house that night. The night she died to say goodbye. And this one's very short. It's number 13, called The Praying Nun. My dad worked at a mental hospital that used to be connected to a nun's home that was abandoned. By underground passage. What? My dad worked at a mental hospital that used to be connected to a nun's home that was abandoned by underground passage. I'm not sure what that sentence means, but maybe it makes sense to you guys. He says that one night he was walking down there when he saw a praying nun. He walked by her and said hello, and she did not acknowledge him. My dad does not believe in ghosts, but he said there was a nun down there that night. Huh. So those are 13 pretty good stories, I think. Pretty creepy, pretty good. At least I think so. Let's see, this one is from a site called Paranormal 360. Paranormal360.co.uk. This is 10 frightening true life ghost stories you'll ever read. Well, thanks, William. Thank you. 10 most frightening true life ghost stories you'll ever read. We love ghost stories and we can't get enough of them. Who doesn't, right? So the first one that they have on here, I was going to read you the whole intro, but I don't need to read you their whole webpage. But that's where this information comes from, ladies and gentlemen. This is called Laughter in the Middle of the Night. When I was a child, I lived in an old Victorian house, and I would always hear laughing while I was trying to sleep. I was an only child with a single mother, and when I was about 5 or 6, I would wake up hearing laughter in the hallway in the middle of the night. After mentioning this to my mom, she swore it was probably just the TV being left on late. One night, I woke hearing that laughter in my room. I went to sit up, but felt like there was someone holding my shoulder down, invisible hands gripping into my shoulder while I heard laughing. I screamed my little heart out. My mom ran into my room, flicking on the bedside lamp, convincing me it was only a dream, until I said, "But my shoulders hurt." She lifted up my t-shirt, and there were 2 adult-sized handprints on my shoulder. I honestly thought I had imagined it, and that it never happened, but the other day I mentioned it in passing to my mom, and she went blanket white and said, "I don't want to remember that." The next one's called "I Was Never Outside." This isn't my story, so it takes away from the horror factor a bit, but it's from a good friend that I know doesn't make this stuff up. His story happens when he was about 8. He was playing hide and seek with his friends at his house. It was late, probably about 10-ish. It's my friend's turn to find his friend. He's looking everywhere around the house, but he can't seem to find him anywhere. He eventually decides that he must be hiding outside, so he leaves the house to find him. He starts searching around the bushes when he hears his friend's voice coming from a dark corner, maybe 20 feet away. The voice calls for him to come over. He didn't, because he was already spooked out enough being outside in the pitch black. My friend yelled back, "No, you come over here." That's when he said it really started to get spooky. He told me the voice sounded just like his friend and kept insisting that he come over to the dark corner. My friend kept saying "no" over and over again. At this point, he said the voice suddenly changed to a dark, horrible sounding voice that demanded he come over. At this point, he ran back inside, only to see his friend in the living room. When he questioned how he got inside so fast, the friend said he never went outside. Now, I know both of these 2 guys, and none of them make up this stuff. And I doubt it's the case of an imagination gone wild. Whatever that voice was, it still spooks me just thinking about this story. Yes. That is spooky. There are many stories like that of people taking their animals outside, for instance, and suddenly they hear their voice in the wilderness calling their animal. And it's like, no. Or they hear their parents, who they know are inside, calling from a forest. And it makes me wonder, is that spiritual, or is it some kind of a mimicry from some other being or cryptid or something? Like a Bigfoot. Bigfoots are known as the great ventriloquists, so perhaps. I don't know. A lot of questions. That's the thing with the paranormal. There's always questions. Not a lot of answers, but always questions. This one's called The Farmer. My mother-in-law was a very funny and cool woman. That's 1051, yeah. She and my wife were really close, and sadly, she passed away when our son was about 4 months old. Flash forward a few years. We lived in an old 1930s era craftsman house in Pasadena, California. Our son is about 3 at the time. I was giving him a bath one night, and he starts looking over my shoulder. Not at random stuff, but at something. A moment passes, and he asks me why Grandma calls Mommy a funny name. Long pause. I asked him what he meant, thinking that he was talking about my mom. He then says, "Why does Grandma call Mommy, I don't know, my mother's nickname for my wife?" It's blanked out, so I don't know what it is. I was really set back by this. My wife and I never used the nickname. It was just what my mom called her since she was a baby. I asked him whether he had heard that, and he replied, "The farmer told me." I asked him who the farmer was, and he replied, "His friend." I tell my wife the story later, and she's, of course, reluctant or reduced to tears over the whole nickname thing. We both know there's no way for him to know this, and we just kind of marvel at it. Flash forward to the next weekend, and my son is playing in his room. My wife is at work. She works retail, and I'm at home. I worked Monday through Friday. I hear him start talking like he's having a conversation. He's saying things like, "Yes," "No," "I don't know that," and then some laughing. I go into his room and ask him what he's doing, and he says, "Playing." I ask, "With who?" And he says, "The farmer." At this point, I'm already thinking about the Exorcist movie and Captain Howdy. It's a little unsettling, and I ask him where the farmer is. He says he left when I came in. So my wife gets home and I tell her this, and now she's just as weirded out as I am. We have no idea what to do and figure if it happens again, we'll do something. A few days later, in the middle of the night, we both overhear our son saying the following: Grandma says you and I can't be friends anymore. Wife and I go check on him, and both of us are a little freaked. He's just sitting up in bed. I ask if he's okay, and he says, yeah, Grandma says I can't play with the farmer anymore. He never once mentioned the farmer again. Not ever. He's 13 now and doesn't remember any of it. We do, though. Sounds like Grandma came to the rescue. Well, this one's called The Last Visit. And I have 3 minutes, so I think I can get through this. Our elderly neighbor fell sick and had to go to the hospital. Her niece asked us to take care of her dog while she was away. So after school, work, and dinner, and all, me and my brother were sent over to make sure he was doing okay. So it was late at night in this weird old lady's house. My brother was in the shed with the dog, and I was in the living room looking at the creepy old photos on the mantelpiece. What follows is true. I heard the door creak, and then a woman's voice called out the dog's name. I freaked out, turned around. Obviously, there was nobody about. I thought maybe it was the neighbor's niece, but it had that weird, did I hear that outside my head or inside of it, echo to it. You know what I mean? So I also thought I was just letting the creepy house get to me. But then I went to my brother and Naki, and he was freaking out too because he thought he'd heard a woman's voice inside the shed with him saying, "Oh, there you are." We both agreed the voice had that weird in-your-head sound to it, and we were convinced there were ghosts in the place. Left the dog in the shed, went home, and we were greeted by Dad, who told us the neighbor's niece had just called to say the neighbor passed away in the hospital a few hours ago. So maybe she came home to spend time with the dog. It's really hard to know. I just love all the variety and of these encounters and these experiences, and it's so cool. And I've said it on the show before, and I'll say it again. It's just, I love it when people have paranormal experiences, because in that moment, in the moment that they experience something that defies their understanding of the world, their world expands, and they have to at least acknowledge that something happened that they can't explain, they can't put words to, they can't measure it, they can't quantify it, they can't label it and put it in a jar and put it on a counter or on a shelf. It's amazing. So here's to our expanding consciousness, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to take a break. We'll be back for the second hour of the show on the Paranormal Portal. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Or number 2 of the Paranormal Portal. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being a part of the experience. We don't have any the phone lines at all tonight, and I do have a call from. Actually, it's from Deb. Awesome. Let's have a listen. Hey, Deb, are you there? Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm sorry. Did I leave you on hold a long time? Just out of curiosity, because I didn't look at the call board forever.
No, I checked the time before I called.
Okay. All right. Well, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good.
Good. What's on your mind, my lady?
I don't know. I just thought I'd talk about what went on Saturday.
Oh,
Yeah, you were talking about the EVPs. And it's like I said, not really hearing voices Saturday, but my son's friend, back up. My friend's son called me, and he told me about his house, that he had always had this weird feeling when he rode past it. He wanted me to go over there with him and check it out, which we did. And, the house itself, when we first got there, wasn't the biggest pull to me. It was a tree.
Oh.
And it's just like you could see this guy that had been hurt and had fallen there at the tree and sat there and died. But I couldn't really get good pictures of that because there were so many weeds and stuff around it. But we walked around for a little bit and we came to the house. And I told Bo, I said, there's a girl upstairs.
Oh, wow.
He says, really? I was like, yeah. So a lot of I know some of my new friends probably saw the pictures. It was a big house. A lot of the floors and stuff were out of it. It's like somebody had gone and got the wood to use.
Oh, sure.
And instead of letting me go in, Bo decided he wanted to play daredevil for me. And went in with the camera and took a few pictures downstairs. Well, there was no stairs with the exception of a few at the top. But the piece there that holds the steps was still there.
Oh, okay.
So he kind of carefully went up, and I told him to make sure to take a picture of this one room up at the top if he could get it.
Mm-hmm.
And he grabbed a picture of that along with a bunch of other pictures. And after he came downstairs, I said, have you got any way to record anything? He said, yeah, he could record on his cell phone. So, okay. I said, fine. Started asking questions, trying to get some information. And at one point, and the camera was off at this point. We had already finished the pictures in the house. The camera was off at this point. I asked her if she could communicate with us.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't hear anything. So we didn't think, we made any contact.
Right.
So we went outside and took some pictures and eventually got back around to his truck. And he says, let's play it back and listen to it. He said, better yet, he said, let me hook it up to the radio on my truck and we'll listen to it.
Uh-huh.
Well, we were listening to it and we went through and, I was asking questions. He asked a couple of questions and we really didn't get anything up until, I guess, about 3/4 of the way through. When we asked her, if she could communicate with us,
mm-hmm.
all of a sudden you started hearing sounds of the camera clicking, like it was taking pictures.
Oh, wow.
Now, like I said, the camera was off. We had finished taking pictures at this point. We had heard nothing. Neither one of us had heard anything until we played this back.
Wow.
And you could hear the camera clicking. It was so awesome. I mean, we both looked at each other like, wow.
Yeah, no kidding. That's amazing.
And then, when I told him, I kind of got a feel for young girl, 34, dark, wavy hair, hazel eyes. She was wearing clothes of the early 1900s.
Mm-hmm.
And, we went ahead and left. We decided we were going to try to do something this weekend, but so far we haven't decided on what to do. But I came on home and I started going through the pictures. And sure enough, that one bedroom that I asked him to take a picture of, where I felt her at, there was that beautiful little orb right there.
Wow, that's fantastic.
So we were so thrilled over it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really powerful. Now the question that I have is so you found this place and you found souls that seem to be, I don't know if I would say trapped, but they seem to be present there. Now, is this a situation where you would go back at another point and try to cross them over, or do you leave them be, or how do you normally handle a situation like that?
I will probably go back later on. I'm going to wait for a little bit for her. Now that she knows I've been there and I've made contact with her, I'm gonna wait for a little bit to see what she decides to do. If she decides she wants to go over, I will go cross her over.
And Lewis in the chat is asking what color was the orb that's on that picture.
Trying to think back. I think it was like a opaque white.
Oh, cool. Okay. So in the case like that, now you make connection, and since you have these abilities, you're able to communicate with spirits and such. The distance then doesn't matter. I mean, at any point after that point, a spirit can recontact you and say, could you help me, or whatever.
They have, yeah.
Okay. And
yeah, they have.
Have you ever had it where they follow you home?
I have had a couple that turned up here, but it was mainly to recontact in order to give me a message or to let me know that they were ready to go.
Oh, okay. So it's never been malicious, like something dark who decided, oh, there's a psychic. I just caught my ride. Nothing like that.
I'm pretty good at protecting myself. I mean, I have, before I even go out to wherever I'm going to, I have, I guess you call it a ritual, certain things that I do to protect myself. Mm-hmm. So I really have, I mean, there's been a few not so nice spirits that I've dealt with, but not as many as a lot of people think. I mean, there's a lot of people that think there are these bad spirits or evil spirits all over everywhere, but honestly, there's only been a few of them that I've had to deal with. Mm-hmm. And most of the time, no, they don't follow me home. I did have a girl that was staying with us for a little while, and unfortunately, she had one that followed her to my house. Oh. But it was a case where it was back and forth because I also had another spirit that had been there before that one got there, and this was a good one, and he kind of held the other one at bay until cool. I could go ahead and get that one out of the house. I had to almost reattach it to her to get it back out of the house.
Oh, jeez. Wow.
But yeah.
Could you go over some steps like that? Because I know that things like ghost hunting and people wanting to do paranormal investigation, that's definitely on the rise. And in fact, I'm trying to talk Chris and Cherie into doing finding a place, because we live in the same area, and I thought it would be fun for us to find a place to investigate. But prior to an investigation, you said you have these techniques that you use. Would you be willing to share what you do, or at least give us ideas on how you do your shielding prior to investigation that other people could do as well? Because I think there's so much of that happening that people are just grabbing a recorder, they're grabbing an EMF detector and a camera, and they're just running blindly like, oh, this is going to be cool. Like they're going on an amusement ride, and they are just not prepared. And I think that attachments are happening quite a bit. I think people are maybe experiencing oppression or something to that effect. And I think that it's easily avoidable if people have the right techniques. So would you mind?
It is. Mm-hmm. Of course, like I've said before, I pray. Okay. I try to have quiet time and a little meditation time to focus. Mm-hmm. It's we call it calling on the white light. You envision a white light from the top of your head, and you follow it all the way down your body to cover your body to help to protect you. And I'm sure anybody else that, does investigations, that they will pretty much agree with that. There's just certain things that you do. I always carry a cross or a crucifix with me.
Okay.
I have a medicine bag that I made myself. It's my very own, and it comes in handy. Trust me, I always carry my medicine bag with me. I don't go without it.
Excellent.
But, I mean, you do have to protect yourself because there are, and even sometimes the good ones will go ahead and connect with you. But you've got to protect yourself. This isn't anything that you do in life. You've got to make sure that you protect yourself. And you cannot run out. You can't buy equipment online and holler, "Whoa, I'm a ghost hunter," and just take off and think you know what you're doing, because a lot of times you don't.
And I got to admit, you got a pretty unfair advantage when it comes to ghost hunting, because you have the gift of sight and of course, a feeling and hearing, and so you can already locate where they're going to be at. Whereas I think most people, when they go ghost hunting, they're expecting a haunted house kind of experience at a carnival, and of course, a lot of normal ghost hunting is just sitting around, looking at blank walls, waiting or hoping something's going to happen, but it's usually very mundane.
Yeah, it's not that crazy world out here. Yeah, I mean, they just sit around.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like they have a whole lot to do. They're just, I mean, if somebody shows up, it's like, oh, cool. But when they can tell that we can see them or hear them, it's like, wow, because usually there's been people there before who couldn't, and they didn't understand it.
Right. Now, did you hear the EVP that I played at the beginning of the show from the Ghost Hunters TV program?
Yep.
Now, wasn't that very interesting, the way that that there was clearly the spirit was aware of their presence, able to answer the questions, but not able to see them? And what do you think causes a situation like that, where they're not able to clearly see what's going on at present time?
Some of them are stuck in it's. I look at it as like a time zone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When they died, that's what they remember, so that's kind of how they see things.
Right. So they're seeing things as they remember it, rather than how they actually are, and I suppose it creates a paradox of sorts, because it I mean, if energy creates reality, and of course, we create on a quantum level, we create a reality as well as, just through, not just to say like, well, if you think positive things are happening. I mean, just on a fundamental level, we create reality around us. And so for the spirits, that would be the same effect then, that they create the reality that they understand. Would that be accurate?
Yeah.
Okay. That's very interesting. And I was very compelled by that, because clearly she's responding going, of course I'm here. Where are you? And that was just so interesting. It's like, wow, okay. So she's aware that they're there, but she's not seeing them, and apparently doesn't have the ability to see them. And would you say that a spirit in that case is, as we talked a little bit when you were on the show, are they stuck? Are they working on things, or is it maybe that person doesn't realize they passed? Is that one of those situations maybe where the ghost doesn't realize anything happened?
I would say it's more they don't realize anything happens, and they're just reliving the time of their, shall we say, departure.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they remember. That's what they know. So, I mean, just like what you played, we could hear her.
Mm-hmm.
So you can imagine, if she's still back in her time, she can hear them, but can't see them. And it was the same for them. They could hear her, but they weren't seeing her, and it back and forth. So
the real paradox of that then is that she was the ghost to them, but they were the ghost to her. Is that right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is so.
Have you ever? Okay, maybe the best way to explain that. Have you ever seen a movie called The Other, or The Others? I think it is.
Yes, I did with Nicole Kidman. Yeah.
Yeah, where the people moved into the house and they thought the other people were the ghost, and as it turned out, in the end of it, they were the ghost.
Yeah, very good movie. Yep.
That kind of explains that situation there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. I agree completely. I think that's a great example in our popular culture of what was going on there. That's brilliant. And I know I'm sorry to just start interviewing you again and kind of hijack you for the show. But I just really love the times when we get to chat and share ideas like this. This is wonderful.
Oh, it's fine with me. I don't mind at all.
So now you guys are planning again a return trip to that place, and what do you expect to have happen on a return trip?
I will probably just go ahead, and I won't be pulling an investigation, going around and checking everything, doing the pictures and everything. I'll just go over and probably contact her, and if I get the feeling that she wants to go over, I'll go ahead and send her.
That's wonderful. And I think that's really...
Sometimes it'll take a couple of minutes. Sometimes it'll take a little bit longer, but...
Mm-hmm. That's what's so profound about your gift and about your abilities. And do you mind if I ask, how do you cross them over? Is it a meditation thing, or is it do you light... Now, I've heard some people light white candles to, stimulate or to encourage the light to shine down. Some people meditate that there is an opening and created in their minds, and so therefore maybe it's there for the spirits. How do you do it?
I ask for the light to open up, and I help pray them across.
Okay. And that's really powerful. Yeah. And I don't mean to dismiss ever in my accounts the power of prayer. I do believe wholeheartedly that, whatever religion you believe, if you believe it with your heart, your prayers become incredibly powerful. And so I don't ever mean to sound like I'm disparaging any religion or any religious practice. And I know that's an important part of what you do, and I think that's wonderful. So please forgive me if you've ever had the feeling that I don't like to mention prayer. It's definitely not the case.
Oh no. Well,
okay.
It's okay.
Well, that's wonderful. And again, do you do a lot of ghost hunting, Deb, or is this more of a unusual activity for you?
I do it as much as I can. I mean, if somebody comes to me, I don't always, go looking. My grandson and I had gone. A friend had told me about this place called Webb's Mill Pond, and my grandson says, "Oh, I know where it's at," but he didn't tell me why he knew where it was at. So we went over there. I wanted to grab pictures, and lo and behold, as we're walking around, I'm like, "Tyler, there's activity here." Mm-hmm. He's like, "Yeah." And I knew he was sticking close to me for some reason, but I wasn't quite picking up on why. And we were going around and all, and there was a big metal bridge. And I said, well, let's go up there. And I started up there, and it's just like something was holding me back, because about the time we got up to where the bridge started, because it was cement, it had been a roadway. That's where we were walking, was on the pavement that was left. By the time I got to actually where there was no land at, that the bridge itself was open, there was nothing under it, something was holding me back from going out there. So I just stood there and got a couple of pictures, even though I had wanted to go out. As we started back to the car, my grandson's like, well, Thomas and Austin and I had come up here. I said, so that's how you know where it was at? Yeah. I said, well, did they tell you it was here? Yeah. And he's like, that house that we were taking pictures of, he said, they told me there was a woman and a little kid that died in that house. I said, okay, so you're going to tell me this now? He said, well, yeah. He said, and while I'm at it, he says, when we were going up on the bridge, he said there was something dark that crossed my path. I said, Tyler? I said, y'all were planning on going out on the bridge, weren't you? Well, yeah. I said, okay. I said, there was something more than likely telling you not to. I said, it was keeping you from going out on that bridge because it was unsafe. What he didn't tell me that he told his mother is that dark whatever it was followed them all the way back to the car to make sure that they got in the car and left. And it's like I told him, I said, I don't feel anything bad out here. So I said, all that was, and he's like, well, it was dark, it was black. I said, that doesn't mean anything. A lot of people think something black all the time means evil, but it doesn't. Spirits can show themselves in all different forms. Sometimes you will see just a head or a face. Sometimes you will see the whole body. Sometimes they will show up as a white mist. They have different ways of showing themselves.
That's very true, and
so, I mean,
several sources as well. One of which was a psychic was saying there were people reporting the spirit, and they said, we sometimes see this dark shadow, and she goes, well, no, that's still the same spirit. It's just that she's trying to be not noticed. She doesn't want to be, standing out, so she's making herself look dark so that you don't notice her as much. So
yeah, I've had some people that I have made contact with that have crossed over that will be standing behind a black veil. It's almost like they're afraid to come forward. They want to talk with me, but they don't really want me to see them, although it doesn't do a whole lot of good. But I mean, they have shown up with a black opaque veil in front of them.
That's very interesting. Very, very interesting. Huh. So we definitely got to get you back on the show again, too, to do more of those readings. That was a fantastic time, and I know so many of the people that had the readings that I talked to afterwards were absolutely thrilled with them. So you'll have to definitely get in touch with me and let me know what your schedule looks like, because that's something we definitely have to do again. Okay,
I love doing it. I really did.
Yeah, and we loved having you, Deb. It was just such a marvelous time. And thank you so much for calling in and sharing your wisdom and your experiences. And I can't thank you enough for being a part of the show and for being a part of the Paranormal Portal family. So thank you for your call.
I love it.
Oh, we love it.
Thank you.
You are welcome, and have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Good night. That's just marvelous. I really love those opportunities to talk with her and of course with anybody that has those talents, those gifts, because it's such a window into another world that's, I believe I understand, and I'm working on my understandings of them, but to hear it firsthand is always so powerful and fantastic. So thank you again, Deb, for calling in and for taking time to do that and sharing your experiences. And she's also written many emails about things that I've read on the air as well. And so she's been a regular contributor to the show. And I love it when you guys contribute and when you guys, tell me what's going on in your world and what your experiences are, because there's no better experiences than the firsthand experiences. So we're going to take our break now. It's coming up to the half hour. And so we'll be back for the last half hour of the Paranormal Portal for tonight. And then you'll be done with me. Don't go away. hope you guys are enjoying the show. Hope you're having a good time, and hope you're relaxed. Hope you got something to drink, took a break. You only got to put up with me for another 25 minutes. Not bad, right? Show goes so fast, though. It's just amazing to me. I start talking, I start reading, start thinking, start blabbering. And next thing I know, it's done. It's time to go. Time to wrap it up for the night. And then I got, of course, tomorrow night, which is nice. So if you are enjoying the show and like to hear more, please come back tomorrow night. We do the show Friday and Saturday nights from 10 p.m. till midnight Pacific time. So whatever that means to whatever time zone you're in, I don't know, but that's when we're here, so come back. That's a little Homer for you. So welcome to the show, and tonight we're talking about ghosts. Ghosts. Those spooky experiences so many people have. So many people have. And of course, we just had a great call in from Deb. Thank you, Deb, again. And if you would like to be a part of the show and would like to call in, the call-in number is always open. Again, it's 213-233-3998. And the call board is open. So we're going to continue on with our stories here. We are going through the list of 10 from the paranormal360.co.uk. This one's called Photographic Memories. I grew up in New Mexico and was always very into the outdoors, hiking, camping, rock climbing, etc. One summer when I was 19, I went on a 4-day, 3-night camping trip near my parents' house on my own. Might sound weird, but I had been to this area many times and it was quite safe. Anyway, I brought my camera, brought my camera, and took lots of pictures. When I came back and developed my film, there were 3 extra pictures that I didn't take of me sleeping, 1 each night. None of my stuff was missing or stolen and nothing happened, but it freaked me the hell out. Clearly. That would be weird to wake up and see your own picture of you sleeping. So clearly he was not sleeping alone. This one's called The Uninvited Visitor. I'd like to share my story that brought about my belief in ghosts. When I was about 15, I was homesick from school. I lived in a large house with 2 floors and an unfinished basement. In the basement, I had set up a craft room for my painting/staging Warhammer figures in what was once a photographer's darkroom. It was noon and my stepdad often came home for lunch, so when I heard the telltale sounds of the front door opening, I figured I'd call my mother and let her know that he was home and tell her I was feeling better. As I dialed the phone, I listened to him close the door with a slam and walk through the foyer into the kitchen and turn on the tap directly above the craft room. My mom picked up the phone at work and I told her that Kay, my stepdad, was home for lunch. She told me that he wasn't going home for lunch, that he was really busy at the office. I froze in terror as the tap was shut off and the person upstairs walked back through the foyer and up the stairs to the bedroom. My mother told me to hide while she called Kay, minutes away, to come home. I crept upstairs, quite quiet as a mouse. It says quite, but it's supposed to be quiet as a mouse, and grabbed the largest kitchen knife and then back into the basement to hide. Kay was home about 6 minutes later. He scoured the house and found no one, but I never heard them leave. This one's called I'll See You Soon. Not to me, but to my Nana, and it freaks me out to this day. He's apparently responding to a question of something happened to them. He's saying, not to me, but to my Nana, and it freaks me out to this day. My Nana is a very good friend, has a very good friend, and she has known her since nursing days. And back when they both had their kids and had grown into women, her friend's ex-husband rang up my Nan. He was very depressed and needed someone to talk to. But my Nan had to say that, unfortunately, she couldn't go over to see him, as she had just had a newborn, which was the author's father, was breastfeeding and needed to feed. He said he understood and said, "I'll see you soon then." My granddad was on nights at work at this time, so she wasn't expecting anyone home or to visit until the next morning. At about 9 p.m. that night, she heard their front gate open. It was a very vocal gate. She liked it that way so that when she was home alone, she knew when somebody walked up to the house. She assumed that maybe Granddad had been sent home or forgot something, so thought nothing of it. That was until the family dog, Ben, began to stiffen up and growl towards the front door, and nobody opened it. He began to bark. Nan insists he had never been like that. He was a dog that had been brought up around 4 youngsters, placid, patient, and kind. She tried to get up to open the front door, to see if some kids were playing around with her, but she couldn't. She was frozen in her place on the chair. She said she felt icy cold for about 2 minutes. The fire was blaring. Nan described that after the cold began to fade, she felt very calm and serene, and heard the front gate go once more. In the morning when the granddad returned home, she explained to him what had happened and at what time, and he told her that he had some terrible news, that her friend's ex-husband had committed suicide at about 8:50 p.m. that evening, and took about 10 minutes walk to my Nan's house then from his. It took about 10 minutes walk to my Nan's house from his. Then from his. I don't understand that last sentence, but anyway, it appears he did come over and visit. This one's called The Little Girl Ghost, and I'm not a big fan of the idea of little girl ghosts, and I know not everybody believes with me, and that's fine. I only I only have this opinion because, again, if a child passes, if there's anything good, just, and wonderful and loving in this universe, and I believe there is, then children are brought home. And I think a lot of times that other entities disguise themselves as children to make people trust and lower their defenses. But anyway, that's my own opinion, and I'm no expert, so I don't pretend to know for sure that I'm right, but it just seems more times than not that tends to be the case. So, this one's called The Little Girl Ghost, so we'll see what it says. 6 years ago, when I was 19, I was staying the night at my 2 best friends' house. All 3 of us were sleeping on the bed, and I woke up in the middle of the night. There was a girl around 6 or 7 years old standing at the foot of the bed looking at us. I was so freaked out, I just kept looking back at her. I was too scared to do anything. She slowly faded away. I swear this really happened, but I'm not sure if it was a ghost or if I was somehow semi-awake and dreamt it. Scariest thing I've ever experienced, though, regardless if it was my imagination or really a ghost. I didn't tell my friends for a couple of months because I couldn't really believe it, so I thought they definitely wouldn't. Then a few months later, I saw the girl they were telling me how one night they were in their room and they heard children laughing in the living room. They went to their bedroom door to listen better, and then they got to the door. There was a loud thunk on it, like someone hit it. They ran out of the room thinking someone was in their house, but when they checked the house, there was no one there, and all the doors were still locked. I told them about the girl I saw when they told me what happened to them. And that's where the story ends, so we have no idea what the recourse of that sharing of knowledge was, but interesting. You are not allowed to touch them. When I was 8, my family moved from urban South Florida to a really small town in northern Florida. It was like from a Goosebumps book. A lot of weird stuff has happened to me in the 15 years since we moved there. But the weirdest has got to be when my sister moved back in with my parents. My sister's husband had been shipped off to Afghanistan, so she was left alone with a newborn son. Not wanting to go through the soul-crushing loneliness of raising a newborn all in a trailer in the woods, she moved back to my parents' house for a while. She said it started first when the headboard of her bed would slam every now and then. Then, one day, she woke up because somebody was tickling her. She didn't really think about it until one night she woke my mom up by screaming. My sister is almost 30. She's not a little kid. And my mom went in, and the whole bed was rocking and shaking, like really violently up and down to the sides, like a boat going through whitewater. But my mom and sister had been through a lot of stuff, so they persevered. One night, my sister was nursing her son when something grabbed her ponytail and started yanking her head around. My mom went in the living room and very sternly, like talking to a bad kid, said, "I understand things are different, but there's a little baby here and there never has been before. You're curious, I understand that, but you will not touch them anymore. You can look, you can stay, you were here before us, but I swear to God you are not allowed to touch them." And it stopped happening. And that's the end of the story. And again, that's very true though. You have to claim your space. You have to claim, your boundaries. And you have to mean it. You can't say it out of fear. You've got to say it with conviction. Like, this is the deal. This is the deal now. Whatever the deal was before, I don't know. But this is the deal now around me. These are my rules. Because you have the right to, claim the sovereignty of your space and your body. Footprints in the snow. Most memorable unexplained event in my life happened while snowshoeing a few miles away from a small northeastern town in Oregon. The sun was just up and there was fresh layer of snow about 4 inches worth. The forest was quiet, eerily quiet. It was one of those places that just makes your hair stand on end. I felt someone or something was watching me. At this point, I turned around to head back to my car, only to find a fresh set of human-sized prints right behind my own. Scary part is that the snow is about 2 feet deep, and these prints were only pressed in a couple of inches. There was only a right print, and it only occurred in intervals of 10 feet or so. They started from nowhere and ended near where I had stopped to turn around. What the hell was following me? Very creepy. Very creepy. To be followed. I imagine that's probably true, that there's probably a whole lot of boredom in the afterlife, perhaps, that they maybe look to us for their entertainment, kind of like a Truman Show kind of thing. They're stuck, and for whatever reason, whether by choice or by whatever, maybe they can't move on for whatever reason, but they become interested in what we're doing, and they start watching, and they start interacting, and who knows. But again, just a theory. I can't know for sure. But it's my show, and you get my theories free of charge, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not charging extra for my own 2 cents. So you got that going for you. So we made it through that list of stories, and I think they're pretty good, actually. I kind of like them. I love those they're not really like terrifying, but they're just a little bit spooky, just a little bit weird, just a little bit off the norm. So now these stories are from a site called darknessprevails.org, and I know it's a very, very, very popular paranormal site and kind of alt/weird site, but they cover a lot of stuff. They say true stories, true scary stories, creepypasta, and the paranormal. So they've got quite a chain of incidences that they cover. But they do a hell of a job on this site, darknessprevails.org. If you get a chance, check it out. There are so many things on there, so many stories and tales and things, that it's pretty well done. I just found it. I found it a long time ago. It's a really good song. It's one of those songs that makes you think. This is a song I shared with a friend of mine, and it's one we both love. So every time I hear it, I think of her. So anyway, I'm going to get into some of these stories from this website. I'm sorry for the laughs, but it's funny. The power of music is just, it's so amazing and compelling. And okay, John Titor in the chat room is familiar with darkness. Darkness prevails. Jerome. Darkness fails. Come on, they do a nice job on that site. I don't know why you're bagging on them, brother. But anyway, I'm going to read you a couple of these stories. I just love paying attention to the chat room. I should come in there more when I'm not doing a radio show and just enjoy the conversations, because a bunch of amazing people and some great jokes. There's always something make me laughing. So this one is called It Must Have Been Something. Hello, my name is Ellis, and I live in Sweden. I'm trying to move my microphone a little bit here. I feel like I'm stretching. Ugh. Worn ruts into my pad that goes beneath my chair. So my chair always rolls to this one spot. It's like, no, I want to move closer to the microphone. Hello, my name is Ellis. I live in Sweden. I don't remember when it happened, but it happened about a year ago. It was nighttime. I was sitting in my bed and watched YouTube. It was storming outside around 8 p.m. Paused the video I was watching. Hearing the strong wind and rain made me a bit worried. All of a sudden, I heard 2 banging noises from the window. It was like someone hit the window 2 times, fast and hard. I quickly looked over at my window. Nothing was there. After staring a minute or two, I got up and opened my window. I listened for running footsteps. It has happened that children smacked my window and ran away, so I thought it was them who hit my window, but I didn't hear any steps. I then decided to take my flashlight that I keep in my room to see if I could see anyone or anything that could have hit my window. I shined my flashlight around, but I couldn't see anything. But then, towards the graveyard, I could see eyes. They were low to the ground, so I assumed it was a cat. Cat. My voice kind of dropped out. I then went to my brother's room and asked if he had heard anyone running past his window, but he said he didn't hear anything. I went back to my room confused. After some thinking, I asked myself this. If it were the children, why would they do it now? It's storming and raining quite bad. And then I asked myself again, this guy is talking to himself all the time. If those eyes belonged to a cat, why did it stop to look at me? It was raining, and wouldn't the cat have run off when I shined my light towards it? Later, when I was going to bed, I kept thinking about it. I couldn't fall asleep. The next day, our power went out. My mother tried to do something about it, and it somewhat worked, but only in my brother's room. Nothing much happened that day. I did keep thinking about what happened the night before. Fast forward to the night, I couldn't sleep. I was scared. I felt like I was in danger. I don't know how long it took for me to fall asleep, but I did have a nightmare. The nightmare was about my room. I was in it, but something was wrong, very wrong. The lights would turn off by themselves and the room grew cold, and I felt like someone or something was in there with me. I left the room with the feeling that if I had stayed longer, something would have happened. In the morning, the power to all the rooms came back and I felt better. I still don't know what it was that made the noise on my window, but it must have been something. But one thing is for sure, it happened. I didn't imagine it. My cats heard it too. So there's no indication for sure that was a spiritual experience, but perhaps the nightmare is kind of the indicator that it was not a physical creature, but it was more spiritual. Not sure. But potentially. This next one is called My Scary Stories from Ireland. I was the only one in the house. I am 28-year-old male from Northern Ireland. This story happened to me when I was 14 years old and still can't explain what happened. I just got home from school for the day. My parents were both at work. Both sets of neighbors either side of my parents' 4-story mid-terrace house were at work as their cars weren't there. And lastly, my older brother of 4 years was at college and wasn't due home till early evening along with my parents and surrounding neighbors. My bedroom was on the top floor of the house, and my brother's room was next to mine. I was laying on my bed listening to music, as teenagers do, when I heard someone running from the front door of the house all the way each flight of the stairs up to just outside of my bedroom. Me thinking it was my brother home early from college, I shouted, "Hi, Sam, how's it going?" I got no reply. I shouted to him again, "Okay, then." Still no reply. I was getting annoyed at this point, so I got up from my bed, opened my bedroom door, opened my brother's bedroom door. Nobody there. I searched the entire house from top to bottom, every bedroom, checked all the doors, and they were locked. I was the only one in the house. That story actually reminds me of Naysay, a friend of the show as well, who one of his first times he called in, he told us about a story. He was just living in an old mansion in St. Paul, and he had something run up the stairs in that old house then to just outside of his room that he was in. So plenty spooky, but it does happen. It really does. Very interesting, though. Oh boy, we only got 11:52. Where did the time go? 4 minutes left. Oh my God. I gotta see if I can make it through this one. I don't believe I can, so it looks like we'll have to continue tomorrow night with this story. But time goes so fast. So very fast. So I want to play that EVP again from not the really scary one. I don't want to leave you with that scary one. That one is just too creepy. I want to leave you with the one that, in case you missed it at the beginning of the show, the one that from the Ghost Hunters TV series. It was the one where they're investigating and they're asking questions. Of course, they can't hear with their own ears, but they're catching it on their recording devices. A spirit that is interacting with them and apparently can't see them either. And we discussed it with Deb a little bit on the phone. So let me replay that for you, and you guys can tell me what you think about that. That was a bad fade on that, wasn't it? I'm sorry. I'm new to this soundboard thing. All right. And I should probably turn up the volume. Let me turn down the sound a little more.
This is 314. Princess room. Now, this is her original bed.
Original bed?
Yeah, she slept in this bed all the way back in the 1800s.
Royalty, man.
So,
That's crazy.
yeah, I like those old big oak trees. They call them the dead
Of
trees
course.
or something.
You live in house?
I picked that up.
So the woman's voice,
Yeah, this is the
there was no
original
female investigator on site.
This is tying
The woman's
in
voice is the spirit voice.
bed. Princess, are you in here? Princess, can you at least let us know you're in here? Maybe say something.
Of course
Move
I'm here.
something.
Wow.
This is in the beginning, you can hear what sounds like "Hello, is there somebody there?"
Princess, are you in here? Princess, can you at least let us know you're in here? Maybe say something. Maybe say.
Pretty creepy. And what makes this even scarier is the fact it really does sound like it's trying to communicate with the investigators.
Yeah, that's a great clip. Very powerful, and that really illustrates the different states that maybe spirits are in. Maybe there's, as Deb was saying, maybe there's some that they are living the reality that they remember, and the investigators become her ghost because she can't see them, but she can hear them. And of course, they're trying to communicate with her as she is their ghost. So very, very compelling, very interesting. And it's always the case on the Paranormal Portal, ladies and gentlemen. But that about wraps up our show for tonight. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for being a part of it. And thanks for letting me beta test on you tonight with these sound files and such. I'm going to bring more to the table tonight, many more. But I wanted to test it out and see if it worked, and I appreciate your guys' feedback. And so I love you all. Be good to each other. Thanks for being here. And again, we'll be back tomorrow night, 10 p.m. till midnight Pacific. Be good to each other, and I'll see you then. Take care.